What's happening, mate?
How do you mean?
Well, it's not exactly kicking off, is it?
Oh no, it never does. To 8 o'clock!
Sets up Larsson here. Larsson. Oh, he's in! Henrik Larsson! That is sensational! O'Reilly. How about that for a pass? Jota! How about that for a finish? That is Jota for you! In for Henrik Larsson. And Rodgers! His first goal for Celtic! Here is Shunsuke Nakamura! Exquisite!
Good evening all and welcome back to the Celtic Unrestricted View. I'm JP and it's Thursday night and I'm joined by Mark. Mark's been on before with us. Good evening, mate. It's good to see you. Hope you're well.
Good to see you, JP, and good to see all the viewers as well. Good to be here. Always a privilege to be on with you, big man.
Thank you very much, mate. That's probably the best. And to get you on more often, that's probably the best introduction I've had since I've done this, actually. Obviously, Mark's joining us tonight for another wee chat regarding Celtic and the end of the transfer window debacle and everything that's been going on. But good evening to everybody across the platforms that's tuning in with us. I hope you're all well. Hope you've had a good week. Mark, obviously, I'm just going to get right into it with you, mate. Myself and Ryan and Daniel this week have been on already, and we've had a wee chat about, Celtic's form before the transfer window. Celtic going in, starting the season, being top of the league, they're doing this. Then they go out the Champions League, and then obviously the transfer window, which seems to be taking the most view overall and everything above. So, just obviously your own thoughts, mate, in terms of where you are, how you're feeling, what's it left you with? You left with anxiety, you left with anger. Are you happy even? Or, is it something different? And obviously, how you getting on, mate?
Yeah, it's been a cruel summer, innit? It's a Bananarama song. So it's certainly been long and protracted. And it's left me personally disappointed because I've not stuck up for the board. I like to kind of go through, I don't, the good and the bad, I like to try and weigh things up. And I know football's emotional, and that's part of the beauty of being a Celtic fan as well, the emotive kind of feelings that you get, the emotions that you go through, but I like to try and temper them and not react, but it's been difficult in the last week. Because right up to a couple of weeks ago, I thought that they were doing things that the way they done last summer, and I could see the strategy up until a couple of weeks ago, but since just the last 2-3 weeks really, and Almaty game obviously, so the closure, the Monday, watching the transfer window, even to that point you thought, can we still pull something at the bag here? But the writing was on the wall. Even in the Monday morning, I likened it to watching the Almaty game away. Painful viewing. First 10 minutes, you just knew, and you just had to sit through it, and you knew the inevitable outcome, which was poor. I know we got a few players in. Can I leave that to later, that the squad's in hand right now? But the silence it's not been good enough. And I know that they can't share a lot of things. Not a lot of clubs do come out and try and explain what they're doing, especially in the transfer kind of situation. However, I see that our rivals done it yesterday. Not to look into that too much. However, it's communication. And even today, you would think, or I would think, that they would have some sort of communication, at the very least, to kind of put to bed some of the rumours that are going about. So I've seen something today that the initial bid for Dolberg was 4 million, things like that. And then the go-ahead Eagles kind of situation. Their representative coming out and saying things against our club's way of dealing with the transfers. Now, these could be quashed, or they could just be explained to the support, because it's just building that kind of emotion, anger, frustration with the support, because we're totally in the dark and everybody's just speculating. I've got my own theory that I'll share, but it's been just disappointment. And to be looking still for a striker, I know we've got one in, but even after the window, it's for me, it's quite embarrassing. A club our size is having to try and get a striker in once the transfer window had closed. I just think that just isn't a situation, but that's what it's been reduced to. Just going through the whole window, thinking that we could maybe get some signings done early. I know we've done some, and then maybe getting others, and just in a time to be prepared for the Champions League game at least. But then that didn't happen, so you gave them the benefit of the doubt, thinking, okay, it might be a better quality of player if they are waiting with the lure of the Champions League, if we did get in. So that was the gamble, but it never materialised, but neither did the signing still. You think, well, they've not got the Champions League. They've got to kind of redeem themselves here in a short period of time. Surely they could get a high-profile loan signing just to kind of boost the squad, boost the fans' excitement. But that never really came through either. So all in all, I'm not going to write the transfer window off for players, because I've been here long enough, or a fan long enough to know that we've had some fantastic transfer windows in paper. Even the COVID season looked brilliant. The signings were in, Shane Duffy, EPL experience, etc. And it never really panned out. It was probably one of our worst windows, actually. So it doesn't always go that way. But my bigger concern is the manager. And I think this all materialised through, I believe, last January when we get beat off our rivals 3-0. And I don't know if you remember, the manager came out a few times and spoke about the fans being disgruntled. I think it was a game that they were singing for Kieran Tierney, of all people. And he wasn't happy, and he spoke out about it, and it's not like the manager at all. And I think from then on in, he's decided that was him. He's just only doing his 3 years. And I think he informed the board at that point that that's what he was doing. No way any malice, just he came to the point that he just decided, no, I'm here for my 3 years. I say I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. And from then on in, I've seen a different manager. The Aberdeen Cup final game, prior to the last couple of weeks, I put it down as just one of those games that you can't win everything. I'm not changing my mind. It was Rodgers' fault. He tuned it just before Munich. The Munich game took care of itself because of the run that they'd been on. The team had built up for 2 years to go through and progress to that kind of level, to compete against a team like that. And then for me, after that, you seen it. We get beat at home off our rivals. The team just weren't the same. Players fell away with the loss of form and just the majority of the team. And then that started in pre-season. Nobody's really... Negren's played okay, coming in as a new signing, but the rest of them have been way off. And that can't be just individual players losing form all at the same time. That comes for the top. That comes for the focus. That comes for the purpose and the intent, and it comes for the manager from me. And we should never get beat off Almaty. You can go into tactics, you can get into systems all you want. It's attitude and focus. And for me, he's similar to, I mentioned it before, I think, the final interviews that he was doing in his Leicester days. I watched it closely because the results weren't great. He'd done relatively really well at Leicester up until that point. And he'd tuned out. He was just seeing out his time. And I've got a concern that that's what he's doing again. And the board are just going to go with it because it will cost them a lot to get rid of him. And they'll probably think that he's still got enough to win as a league. But I've got my concerns about that as well. So that's where I am with it. That's where I believe. And I think the board just decided to back him like they did in the summer because he couldn't commit. So if he's not going to commit any further, they'll just do what they can. But they did hedge their bets on the Champions League qualifier game. They did think they would maybe get a better quality of signing after that game, and it's blew up. So it left them scrambling in the position that we're in.
Yeah, and obviously you spoke quite highly there regarding the manager, and obviously you know, in terms of your way of thinking, he's the same as me, he's exact same as me, Mark. The manager's not getting off squeaky clean with me either for this. I blame the Kyrat tie on Brendan Rodgers. He shoulders that blame, in my opinion. So do the players, by the way. They're not getting away scot-free either. Because as much as, you know, the board have had their own failings along the way, and things haven't worked out the way we would expect as fans, and we'll come to that as well as we go. But when you look at the position the manager's in, and the type of manager we have, and the level that he can manage at, it's definitely not. It's definitely way below anything we would expect, mate, at Celtic that last tie. I agree with you, mate. I think the players look dejected by it all, and I don't know if it's Brendan Rodgers. His comments coming in, you know, he's talking about the continuation for quality. He's talking about the squad being depleted in numbers, and it's, you know, it's mathematical and everything. And I'm just beginning to wonder, mate, is some of these players actually going out there and going, we need players, and it's registering in their heads. We need players. We aren't as good as we think. We need more quality. We need this. We need this. And then what you start to see is the players start to go safe instead of trying things like to people moaning about them at the weekend, passing forward and going side to side and having to go back away. Is that the players going into their shell? In terms of Rodgers, Mark, obviously you mentioned the Bayern Munich game, mate, where you thought things started to change there. Do you think the fallout for Bayern Munich, that's been the kind of start of Rodgers checking out? I've heard you mention the word check out before. In terms of mentally, do you think that's been the kind of start of Brendan checking out?
So, yeah, and I don't think there's been a fallout. I think the manager's decided just before the Bayern Munich game that was him. And he now knows as well that the board are going to get the blame, and rightly so. Take a large proportion of this. However, if he's orchestrated this, if he's the one that's decided months ago that he's just going to stay his 3 years and see it out and not have the same appetite, then maybe the board's decisions in the summer are reflective of that, or they had to be. They wouldn't be prepared to give him another 30-40 million if he can't commit over longer than the 3 years. And that's where I've just seen a different Brendan. I've just seen the comparison was this time last year he was telling us about other players referencing that this is a Brendan team, and you've seen the difference. You've seen the attitude. You've seen Mattarelli playing out his skin until he got his move to Brighton. That was a completely different dynamic in the squad to the one you've seen this summer. So that's not because we've not signed a few players. Now, we needed to sign a few players, but we still got a couple in to begin with. Still refreshed the squad. So nowhere near good enough. But there was no intent in the signings, and that didn't help either. You know, the striker position. But the mannerism of the squad, the mannerism of the manager. I know he's been pleading for quality, but managers do that all the time. It's generic. Even McGregor coming out, I don't know if Rodgers has put him up to it, just to get more quality. But genuinely managers, I've seen Bruno Fernandes going on about it a couple of weeks ago. Davy Moyes at Everton, the boy at Palace, talking about the board not being ambitious enough. So it's run of the mill comments. I wouldn't read much into it as if Rodgers is at loggerheads with the board, because I don't think he is. I think he's generally just seen where he could take us to Munich and doesn't think maybe just an actual look at what he could progress further with and maybe not think it was realistic to progress is further than Munich, because that was the top of the mountain for me. That was 2 years of planning, getting the players in, working towards that, and it would have been really difficult to sustain even if we did go out and try and attract the players that we could, because the market's quite difficult. So I think it's his attitude. The board haven't helped, although if it is, then the board should sack him. You know, if they've sensed that he's not wanting to commit further longer and his attitude isn't what it was, then, and he himself has said that he doesn't work well unless he's got that incentive to improve. And you can see it in his last season at Leicester that he doesn't work. And that's my concern getting into this final season. Although the one thing that I think it could inspire him and make him tune back in is the Europa League. And the opportunity that may give us to kind of see how we can progress in that. But I don't know if that's going to be enough, JP.
Yeah, I can understand totally where you're coming from, mate. Because he's, if it is indeed in fact what you've just said there, then there's not been a disconnect between him and the board, or a bad discussion or an argument or whatever, Mark, then technically you could probably say that he's gaslighted us, because he sat last week and he's telling us there's no disconnect. There's nothing. It was only a week or so ago he done this. That everything all was all in one harmony. So in terms of the, do you think maybe the hierarchy or the moneymen have saw something in Brendan that they think, well, wait a wee minute, we gave you 26 million last year on Austin Trusty, Adam Idah, who by the way is no longer at the club anymore.
Yeah.
And Arnie Engels. But when you were in Kyrat, the three of them were on a bench. So you've got £26 million worth of talent sitting on your bench. So do you think they've maybe looked at that and says to themselves, right, well, enough's enough here?
Possibly. It could be a factor to it. It's one of the things that I've tried to kind of go through, like the rational explanations to this window. And I know I was saying to you earlier on that there's rumours that Nicholson is going to do an interview in Sky Sports. And these are the things that I'm obviously we will all be eager to hear what he's got to say if he does do this. But that's where I'm trying to make some sense of the window, and that might be part of it. If Rodgers hasn't shown the same appetite and same focus, and they've gave him 30 million to spend last year, and they don't see the same appetite, the same Rodgers, the same focus, they might have thought, well, do we give this guy another 30 million here, because he's not committing, he's not staying longer than the 3 years. Well, we just give him enough for the league, and then maybe save a large proportion of it for the new manager next year. In our history as well, we've always predominantly gave our managers a lot of funds up front in the first season or two, if you look back and through the time. And I don't know if they've actually gave Rodgers his majority of his funds agreed for the beginning, for the off last year. Because even Martin O'Neill, first 2 years, get quite a bit of money to spend, and in his last 2 seasons didn't get much. Gordon Strachan was the same. Rodgers in his first spell get the majority of his money in his first 2 seasons, and then it ended up loan signings and all that, like Ollie Burke and Timothy Weir and stuff like that. So I don't know if that was maybe agreed beforehand. And Rodgers sensed that he couldn't do as well this season, and that's where he's kind of checked to it, because he knows he's not going to get the blame. The board will get the blame for no spending another 30 million. So, and it's kind of left maybe the board in a position. How did they come out and explain the window, when it might be because he's not been fully on board with what we're going to do?
Yeah, well, that is a thought, mate. But obviously, as you spoke about there, you have mentioned that there is some murmurs going around now that the Michael Nicholson, Celtic's CEO, has done an interview. Apparently, it was meant to have been today with a representative from Sky Sports. Now, obviously, nothing's been publicised and nothing's been put out by Sky or anything at all, but there has been, ongoing whispers. And this has all come off the back of, Mark, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yourself, mate, a letter document that was sent into the club by the Celtic supporters associations and all the Celtic fan media like ourselves who are out there chatting about this. And obviously we're part of that list. The Celtic Unrestricted View are on the list that was sent into the club. And if anybody hasn't seen the document or heard anything about it, I'll quickly read the the first page of it out. So the wording of this wasn't done by myself. It was obviously done by another member of the fan base. And it says, after a disastrous transfer window and failure to qualify for the Champions League, Celtic supporters are once again calling for urgent action to address the clear structural problems within the club. We demand full transparency from the board regarding its repeatedly failure to back the manager and reinvest our money into the playing squad. We also demand accountability. What course of action will be taken to ensure such a collective failure does not happen again? In addition, we highlight once more the club's lack of coherent fan engagement strategy and call for all progressive, innovative approach to working with supporters. And it goes on to say, our questions are for Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay, Peter Lawwell and Dermot Desmond. Now, there are a list of questions. There's quite a bit for me to get through.
Yeah.
But if I'll read the first one out, and then obviously we can have a chat about the first part of the document, Mark, because obviously that's suspectedly why there has now been action by Celtic or whoever it may be, to even speak to Sky Sports. Somebody commented earlier saying it'll be Celtic TV. It's not Celtic TV, by the way. It's Sky Sports. It won't be done on Celtic TV. They're not going to let the fans in to do this kind of interview because, as Mark said earlier, unfortunately, the club will have certain legalities where they'll not be able to tell the fans everything and every bit of, action that happens within the club. But the first question on this list is, what is the club's long-term football strategy, and when and how will this be communicated to the supporters? Now, Mark, that's the thing, and that's been the ongoing thing, mate. It's been the lack of transparency and clarity throughout, mate. To the fan base, like ourselves, mate, it seems like a scattergun approach, Like you mentioned earlier, you're now seeing the things coming to light that it was a 4 million bid we put in for Dolberg.
Yeah.
We put in a £1.65 million bid in for Jacob Broom, allegedly, and he was bidded, it was, 5 million they wanted from him.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We've just signed a guy from Hammarby for 5.5 million. So the fans are looking at that and going, well, why did we not do this like weeks ago? The same with Balak. We've known his price now for a number of months. We've been chasing him since January. So I think that's what the fan base are asking for. And basically, is that in your mind as well as to, why has the club not pulled the trigger on this maybe sooner?
Yeah. As I said, it's just the explanation. So not only that, for me, Ryan mentions in the comments about Peter Law mentioning that all the money should be reinvested. So the world class comments by Nicholson. So I'm all for the board coming out and giving these grandiose statements. But then when it's no backed up, I don't think they should have said world class either. I think it's a silly comment. I think you should be aiming high and be realistic with your standards. But to say world class gives the fans license to question and really question the board, which they've now got the license to do, and it's understandable. But then they've got to come out and explain what they mean when they're saying world class. When we're getting comments from other clubs saying that we're terrible in negotiations and transfers, when we're getting rumours that there's low bids going in all the time. And I appreciate that happens in the market. Like Atalanta done it with Matt O'Reilly with ourselves last year, right through the summer, and never got him. But we're getting more and more stories from each transfer fiasco that we're involved in. We never seem to get a player just signed. So there's something going on. Our reputation is getting damaged. So an explanation of that. And just it's the fans that are getting all this information and having to stew over it all and try and make of it what they can, when it's just, and some of it might not be, it's misinformation, but then that's the club side of things. Surely you'd think that they'd come out and say, look, this isn't correct, So the Nicholson one with the phone, no answering the phone. So I watched a Leeds documentary a few years ago, and they were trying to sign Daniel James for Swansea, and he was at Elland Road sitting at quarter to midnight, and the Swansea chairman wouldn't answer his phone. So that's part of maybe the transfer dealing. However, these things are getting noted, they're getting publicised, the fans are getting frustrated with it. It's a collective of we need answers to what's going on. Yous are coming out unprofessional. It's tarnishing the reputation of the club. We're not getting the transfer dealings that we need. Fundamentally, that's the issue. And if Peter Law was going to say that we reinvest everything into the team, we've only spent 13 million. We've taken in 25 million. So that's no reinvesting in the team.
Yeah.
So, and you wonder why the fans are constantly accusing the board of acting this way. And they don't always act that way, but they have at a crucial time again. And it is consistently Champions League qualifiers. So I've never seen a team prepared for a Champions League qualifier in my time.
Did you think this team were prepared for the Champions League qualifier, given the actual quality that we did have, but ultimately we still failed?
Yeah, but again, that goes back to the manager for me. It's so we had the resources to. I'll go back to the cup final as well. We should have won the cup final now. It was attitude. The attitude's been all wrong. So the amount of players out of form. So reading the comments as well. See their football. It's the passing back and all that. That doesn't come. That comes from lack. That comes for apathy.
Yeah.
That comes for lack of purpose, direction, focus, and momentum.
Yeah.
That doesn't come for just that we'll just start passing it back today, guys.
No.
That comes because the manager's no focused.
You need to have desire and hunger, and you need to have that there with you at that point in time. But
so how's his team? Yep, sorry, JP. How's his team this time last season without the signings? Because we didn't get the signings to the last bit of the window as well, destroying Chelsea in America. And Matt O'Reilly's playing out his skin. Kuhn's rejuvenated. The team are absolutely on fire. And it's still not had their signings at that point of the season. It's attitude, and it comes for the manager. He drove that. He raring to go last year, and that's how we come out the blocks flying and had an amazing 6 months, an unbelievable 6 months. And I think he got to that game in January, and it changed.
What do you think changed in him, though, Matt? What do you think it was? Do you think it was just that? Do you think he recognised that we'd hit a ceiling and he knew that maybe the money men weren't going to take it past that? Or do you think he was under the awareness that maybe that, what else could he really do to get by that?
So I love Brendan Rodgers, but he's all about Brendan Rodgers. He's got a huge ego.
Aye, aye.
And I think, but that's worked well for Celtic, because it's drove us to the success. He has got high standards because it is about his reputation as well. So I don't mind that. However, at this point now, it's became about him. And at that point, I think he knew. So the Rangers game was the first defeat of the season. It was just off the back of a calendar year that we'd only suffered 2 defeats, Borussia Dortmund and Hearts. Hearts game, we get a guy sent off in the first 15 minutes. So when you go through a calendar season like that, immaculately, and then the Rangers game, you get a bit of criticism, and that's how he came out and spoke about it. And he never does that. He's very, very well maintained, Brendan. He can keep his emotions in check most of the time. And I think he thought, I'll struggle to repeat that or build on this. And I possibly the board have said to him that the majority of your spending will be in your second season. And that's when he's phoned it in. Because he knew, and from then I think he's designed it for the board to get the blame. So that he can just see out his contract and go, and the board kind of cop the lot. But again, only the board can explain this. Only they can give us something to go on, because either that we're just going to speculate and then get snippets of information online that their dealings have been unprofessional and unacceptable.
Due to that document and the power of that document and what's behind the document in terms of the massive majority fan base that's now got involved with this document, and obviously there is a signature form that you can also go on and do yourself if you do it online. And due to the mass of that, mate, do you do you honestly believe, first and foremost, that there will be some sort of, or there has to be a response now from the Celtic moneymen? Or do you think that they'll somehow manage to get away for this one as well?
No, I think they'll have to answer. They'll have to commit. They'll have to communicate in some way to appease the fans at least. And good on the support. That's one thing about the support. I do think sometimes we're a wee bit unrealistic with our expectations, but see, to be honest, the fans have got really high standards and they push for it. And it was, if you look back to the COVID season, the fans weren't happy. And and to be fair to the board as well, they have responded in times of crisis. So when we knocked out the semi-final of the Scottish Cup a few years ago with Ronnie Idah, they went and got Brendan Rodgers. And then when we did go through the COVID season, they went out and got Ange Postecoglou. And then when Ange left us, he left us in a lurch. Big Ange. I love Ange as well. But they went and get Brendan Rodgers again. So they do react, and I hope this is the same. And it's and good on the fans for putting the pressure on the board to explain. Because I think they are within their rights. I know that they can be accused of being entitled and we can be spoiled at times. There's a bit of that as well, but in the main and out, it's unacceptable. As a club, with the money that we've got, the fans' money, it is the club's money that generate through player sales as well. But the fans have got the right, the paying fan has got the right to say what's going on. It's £13 million in a team that 6 months ago was competing with Bayern Munich in the Champions League. So, yeah.
Let's talk about new signings. Obviously, we have brought new blood into the team, regardless of what people's opinions are of, you know, what people think of that. But, we've heard various different opinions through time. Obviously, more recently, ones that have been added, Sebastian Tinecki from Hammarby, and then obviously the night after the window closes, we've signed Kelechi Iheanacho, mate. In terms of the signings overall, Matt, what's your actual thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, they're players in the positions that we needed. So it's wide players that we badly needed and a striker that we needed. So the two wide players, I thought, although Balikwisha never kind of attacked his opportunities in Sunday, I thought he actually looked comfortable in the ball and technically quite good. And I've seen better players than him not do much at Ibrox as well, not just in their debuts. So I don't think it was a game to kind of judge him on. I think his kind of apathy in the team as well was reflective of the team, because the whole team weren't really going at Rangers on Sunday. So, but he looked okay. I thought it was an all right debut, and actually should have maybe got his opportunity when he got that foul against him when he rolled Tavernier. That was never a foul. So, but apart from that, yeah, and another boy I heard that he can play in both flanks.
Yeah.
So I'm not one to watch YouTubes and players and things like that. I kind of stay away from that. I like to judge them in a Celtic jersey, because ultimately you can come with a good profile, you can come with a poor profile. It's to see what the player does in the jersey. The striker Iheanacho, yeah, you made a good point last night, JP. I'd have taken Vardy a few weeks ago.
Yeah, a lot of Celtic fans were wanting him, mate.
Yeah. Because he's a proven. He scored 9 goals in the Premiership last year, and okay, he was age-wise, but I mentioned as well that number 9s are rare in the game now. They're getting rarer and rarer. There's not a lot of good number 9s in the game now. So this guy, okay, his career's went a wee bit off, but I think again, did you not mention Scott Sinclair earlier on? And we kind of picked up him in similar circumstances. He was at Villa. He wasn't really playing.
Wasn't he getting? I said it last night. He wasn't getting a game with Aston Villa, and
So the club should be looking to get players like that. To be perfectly honest, however, just know the day after the transfer window.
Aye.
As a free agent, that's the type of players that I think Celtic could rejuvenate their careers and have. Joe Hart's another one actually. He was at Burnley. He wasn't getting a game. He hadn't played for quite a few seasons. Joe Hart. So, and he was older. So yeah, no, I think that, and the guy technically, he's got a good record. He's played with Man City, he's played with Leicester, scored goals in the Premiership, so the Championship. So he's got the qualities. It's just if we can, rejuvenate him and give him that appetite again, which I'm sure he could, and the club can do that. No disrespect to Leicester and Sevilla, but Celtic are the demand of the fans. You can't have a bad game, JP.
Yeah.
But that inspires players, that pushes players on. That's how we produce really, really good players, the players that can match up to the ambition of the club and meet the demands, which is tough. So yeah, I'm all right with the squad, and somebody mentioned earlier on about the young boys, Dane Murray, as well, getting more game time. I think that's, and obviously with RALSTON being injured and KT coming at the squad, although I think that is for just rehabilitation purposes. Donovan should be hopefully getting an opportunity. He looked good when he came on in Almaty, and it's maybe a chance to get our younger players coming through. We want our younger players coming through. It's always been the lifeblood of the club with Callum McGregor, Forrest. So we'd like to see that continue and happen again. It's we've not seen much of it in the last few seasons. So maybe this is an opportunity to get some of the young boys in. Okay, it's no ideal way that we want it to happen, but if it happens and they come in and they do well, then good. So these guys have looked okay so far. So kind of looking forward to seeing them a bit more on the team and getting their opportunities this season.
Yeah, obviously Anthony Ralston, we don't know the extent yet of what that's going to be, but they're now saying that he's at risk now for the next group of Celtic games that are coming up. And you mentioned there about Kobe Donovan, who is a young lad I've really liked what I've saw, mate, in terms of pre-season, and I think he's got looking at him, he's got a really good attitude, and I love that about him. When he's a young boy, so he's willing to try things. But when it maybe doesn't come off, he doesn't get dejected by it. You don't see him going in the half, and when he doesn't get the ball past him, he goes again, he shows for it again, he looks for it again. So he's always looking. Dane Murray's the same. He's always wanting the ball. Even look at his mistake against Aston Villa. And a lot of young boys, Denmark, could have crumbled. Really, really crumbled and mentally totally gone. And that ultimately is why Rodgers did that. He told you, that was a test. And I actually wanted him to more or less say that at the end of the game. He said, I wanted that to happen to him, to give him the minerals to actually be here.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that he's been able to keep himself fit, because he's had injury issues as well. But I did say that last night as well, mate. I've always thought that just as a natural fan base growing up with the Celtic fans and my dad and all that, I think just in general, mate, Celtic fans have got a more dull approach when it comes to their youth. Because he's maybe not got a fancy Spaniard name or an Argentinian twang to his name or whatever, If his name was Dane Mararinho or whatever, I think it'd be more appealing to the Celtic fans, but unfortunately, it's not to be. But I just, and you're right, mate, we've always had Sean Maloney, Ed McGeady came through our ranks as well, and like a young John Kennedy who's still in the coaching team now. That's what Dane Murray puts me in mind of. Steve McManus, there's another one, young Darren O'Dea. I know Darren maybe didn't have the career these other boys had, but he still made a career of it for himself. But I've always thought, mate, I don't know how you feel, but I've always thought the Celtic fans just they tend to look down their nose a wee bit at our own youth, and I think the human nature, mate, is to be ready for failure automatically rather than go, do you know what? Let's see how they're going to do. Do you know what I mean? And really get behind them.
No, I heard you saying that last night, and I'm this is my opinion on the matter. JP, Scottish football just doesn't produce good players, mate. Hasn't done for a long, long time. So in no disrespect, and we've actually done very, very well as a club to bring the likes of KT and Cal Mack and all that through, James Forrest. And even going back to Martin O'Neill's time, Made McGeady, McManus, we brought through a good nucleus of players that went on, not only with Celtic, Ross Wallace, Jamie Smith, on to other clubs and done relatively quite well, Craig Beattie. So players like that that went on and done, we made a bit of money from a lot of them as well, £1 million, £2 million. So we've done all right, but I think it's just the Celtic's best players in the last 20 years, our greatest players in the last 20 years, haven't really been Scottish. Scott Brown, Cal Mack, brilliant captains, but it's been your Henrik Larssons, it's been your Nakamura's, it's been your Kyogos, Miedas, predominantly Jotas. you get your foreign player in, they just seem to be better than the Scottish player. And that is the truth, though. You know, you're talking about Bridge, Ryan was talking about it the other week. There are 3 youth players in their defence, the Champions League qualifier.
Well, the full back 4, I mentioned it as well. The full back 4 all came through their academy.
Yeah. But look at the players that Belgium have produced in the last 10, 15 years. You know, it's night and day to the SPFL.
Yeah.
So, and look at the quality of players that we've been able to sign from other SPFL clubs in the last 10 to 15 years. It's not been great, you know, because we don't produce that great a player. We're getting a wee bit better. Some of the boys have got a Serie A in Italy and all that, and have done really well, you know, but it's just not a great quality. I think youth football in the country needs to improve. I've been involved in it for nearly 20 years now, and it's not really changed much. It's still about physicality and the will to win. We don't develop. We don't look to really nurture the type of player that is successful in modern football now. So that and Celtic, I think have done well, but it's not to say that we can't address it and look to better it and see what we can do to improve the youths. But hopefully these boys do get a turn this season and they do well, because they look like they've got the attributes. They look athletic, they look strong. So I'd love to see it, and maybe the transfer window will give these boys an opportunity. And that's the way that these things can work in football. So we'll see.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of Kieran Tierney, I know there's been an ongoing situation with him. He's came back. It's been really good to get him back. Really good to see him again. Obviously, we're all happy he's there. But there's this growing element of worry now that Kieran cannot complete 90 minutes of football. Everybody's giving it, you know, he's done a full pre-season. He's played every game. Look what's going on. He's now went to the Scotland team. He's obviously met up with their coaches and their physios and medical team. I think they've obviously came to a conclusion that, listen to me, man, you can't even play 90 minutes for Celtic. You can't.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Mark, it's impossible, mate. You just can't do it. You can't go and play with your country, mate, if you can't complete a 90-minute game of football when you've got a back-to-back World Cup qualifying campaign to get underway. Yeah. So in terms of Tierney, mate, where are you there? Are you still not too worried now? Do you think that's something that will build up, or do you think this has been something that's been happening for a while with him?
I think it is part of his kind of rehab. Like, he's not played full 90 minutes for quite a period of time. There's somebody on here actually that comments about the army, the 6 months rehabilitation it takes. So in line with just like kind of getting somebody back up to their full quota of fitness. So
have you commented tonight, Mark, or is this something you saw before?
The last couple of nights, actually, they've commented. I can't remember the name. Apologies, I don't know if they're on tonight. But they've mentioned it a few times just to say that that's generally in the army. That's the rehab for somebody to get back up to full fitness after injury, or just not being as intense.
Go on with some of your commenters, mate. It's probably a Volleys people tribute bandies in or something.
So, but I just, but no, genuinely myself, I think it is this party's rehab. I think that's the gamble that we've had to take with somebody like Kieran Tierney. We got him for free. If he was fit, he would be down in England for 20-30 million somewhere else, Crystal Palace or something like that. He's taken a wage cut, so we've taken a gamble to try and rehab the boy to get maybe effectively a Premiership player if he's fit and at full pelt, but it might take a bit of time to get him up there. So I'm at that at the moment. However, it's still the same case in 3 or 4 months. It's not going to be manageable, but I'm hopeful that it will be. And we've got the new left back in as well, is it Sirachi?
Yeah.
So he did come on and look okay. And Sunday, albeit it wasn't much time that he got. So he's got a good pedigree as well. So hopefully he'll be able to support the situation come in. I think he can play right back as well, actually, and help with that situation. Yeah, it's big grab. So right. Yeah, so maybe it's that type. Well, it's sports science these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it's part of that, and even the Scotland thing, maybe it's part of his rehab. You continue playing, get your 60, 70 minutes. So that could be part of it, and that's where I could see the sense in that. Although the incline is to say that he should retire for international football and put all his eggs into his own kind of fitness. Because if he breaks down, or if he can't complete 90 minutes after a couple of months, you've got to question it. Because there's although he's taking a wage cut, he's probably one of our highest earners, I would imagine.
Yeah, but you can imagine what the Celtic fans would have been saying if he fielded that part on Friday night. Then not only could he not complete it, but he done the same as what he done in the Euros when he got injured. Could you imagine what they'd be saying then? Why is he away with Scotland, and why is he doing this, and why is he doing that? So, no, I agree with you, mate. I think he should. It's maybe something that Kieran obviously would need to do that himself. And I know previously, like Cal McGregor spoke about speaking to Brendan about, and Scott Brown done the same in terms of their time in Scotland and when it was going to come to an end. And I know Brownie went back to help his good friend and Gordon Strachan. And but I think it's getting to that point now with Kieran that he needs to reevaluate his situation, because like you says, mate, in another couple of months' time, if this is still happening with Kieran, like I think one of the commenters had mentioned that about November, December, we get the festive period, and Kieran's still not able to play 90 minutes of football, you're going to be, I think we're all going to be going, right, what's happening, me, man?
Yeah. No, but I'm hoping that it will be just the rehab part of it, and he'll come back strong, and we'll get a really good Kieran Tierney for the next few years. Yeah,
and have you been happy with his form up to now? Because I've seen some fans saying he's not really let the heather alight and things like and especially in the game on Sunday, it was flat as a dodo.
Yeah, but again, is that part of the team? The team's flat as a dodo. It's no, the team's not playing well, and Kieran Tierney's struggling. But I thought he's looked okay. But again, it's only been against Aberdeen, St Mirren. So they're not again, no disrespect to these teams, but they're not at a great level. Near Rangers, to be honest, at the moment. But he was competent. Somebody mentioned last night as well. I think he has certain skills. The defence has been good this season. Actually, we've not looked like conceding for all our problems. We've not looked. I've seen plenty of Celtic teams that are not pleasant to watch, especially at the beginning of the season. Ronnie Dyler's teams shipping hundreds of goals to Malmo springs to mind. We couldn't keep anybody at Inverness Cali at home at that season as well. But this team's looked solid enough that way, so hopefully that's a good sign for us to build on. And he has been struggling to get to full fitness. Well, once he gets to full fitness, then we should be. And the link up with Dyson has been, I think different. The teams maybe adjusting a wee bit because Taylor was so inverted. Now we've got an out-and-out full-back that gets down the byline. It's maybe taking a wee bit of time to adjust. And we've not really had continuity up front. Dyson's had to play through the middle. He's been wide. So once the new wingers are in, we might get a settled 4-3-3 or whatever to see if it's better to link up with Katie in that way. So I think, he's been okay. I wouldn't be too fussed about his performances just yet. But again, that should come with fitness. Yeah.
Obviously, the other side of the transfer window, players heading out the door. How were you on that? Obviously, then there's the Yang situation. He nearly went, then he done a medical, and then he had to come back. Then we've got Idah. Obviously, that came around fairly quickly, that one, because obviously we'd done the Kairat game, and then I think it was like the following night. We were told that he was in advanced talks with Swansea. And it was like, right, okay. So, but I've said this, Mark, all along to certain Celtic fans that I do know. Like, I don't want to hear you moaning once. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you didn't want him here. You wanted him away. So, this is a guy that scored 20 goals last season and 3 of them were in the Champions League. And ultimately, that wasn't, that's not enough for certain individuals. Listen, I understand that people might have their own views on football and stuff, but to me, just speaking like that, I mean, it baffles me as to why there was so much hatred on Idah, because you look at I think it was obviously predominantly the 9 million price tag. When you look at the flip side of that, Nacho's come in for free. So there's not going to be much expectation on this guy, considering he signed out with the transfer window as well. But obviously going out the door, mate, were you pretty much happy with what you seen going that way?
So it'd be interesting to hear the viewers' opinion on Idah leaving as well, JP.
Brian Warriors just commented saying that the 9 million price tag was too heavy for him.
I think that
destroyed him.
I think that was a big part of it. So I was sad to see Idah go. I'm going to pay a wee bit of homage to him in a minute, because
if you're watching, here we go.
it will always have a place in my heart for the cup final goal anyway. I'm 50 next year and I've only seen Celtic beat our rivals in the Scottish Cup final twice. I was too young in the 1980s.
Aye.
So Joe Miller in 89 and then 34 years later, Big Adam. And in the last minute as well. So, but no, just a few things, a couple of good stats on him as well, but just to kind of run through his time at Celtic, because I think he's owed it because we can all agree he's not been the best striker we've ever seen at the club. However, he's significant, and after this you maybe kind of see why. So 52 appearances and 29 goals, and the majority of them are for the bench. So the big man never started a lot of games. Even when Kyogo left, he started a few games and then Dyson went in the middle. So yeah, and when he first came in his loan spell, for me, he was massive for us to win the league. And if you remember, he scored the Easter Road penalties, but the penalty in the injury time, that was massive. And then the bigger goal for me was the one at Fir Park. It came 1-0 down at half time.
He scored a brace, didn't he?
He did, header, brilliant. But then again, in injury time, and that was a massive goal because if we dropped points that day, it was done. It was definitely done. It was huge. So it was the pressure as well. And it was a calm finish. If you remember, side foot, Alistair Johnson knocked it in and he just took it really well. And then he went on to score at Ibrox that season. And again, remember, they'd just come back to 2 each with 10 minutes to go. And that was a game. They were 2 points ahead of us and we had a game in hand. So if they'd won that day, they'd have been 5 points ahead. And I think there was only 3 or 4 games left in the league at that time. So they come back to 2 each. We had a great first half, but all the momentum was with them. And then he went up the park and scored to make it 3-2. They got an equaliser, but a crucial goal, because they looked like they were going to win that game. So again, he came off the bench, Bernardo pass, amazing goal. Then maybe his best performance in a Celtic jersey was the night we won the league. We wrapped it up 5-0 at Rugby Park, and he was outstanding. He bullied Kilmarnock, and Kilmarnock were a good team that season. They were one of the best defences in the league, and he ragdolled them. And we won the league that night. And then his finest moment was the Scottish Cup final. Again coming off the bench, and just last minute winner. Something that we'll all remember. And again, we've not seen for 34 years. The last time that we beat our rivals in the Scottish Cup final was 1989 with Joe Miller. I remember that one. But a few things here that I've put down for him as well. He is the only player in the club's history to have scored more than 1 goal in a Champions League group stage away match. There you go. He scored more goals, Champions League away goals in the league stages than Kyogo Furuhashi, Lee Griffiths, Scott McDonald, Jan Vennegoor Hesselink, Chris Sutton, and Henrik Larsson. There you go.
Oh, he's in good company there, I know, isn't he?
Well, he's better than them. He scored more goals in the Champions League. So, and I'm sad to see him go, but I think we had to sell him. I think the only worst thing that could come out this window was us getting offered 7 million for him and no taking it. And Brown Warriors, right? I think it was his price tag. The fans, we don't spend £9 million much on players. We've only done it 3 times, I think, with Edward and Engels. And I think Engels will go the same way as well, sadly, because it's just the fans, they've no time. And I get it. It's record signings. It's big money, especially for a striker. But when you see there, they get what the guy contributed. We get £7 million. We've effectively paid £2 million in the loan fee for what the guy contributed for us. League winners, young boys, goal in the Champions League contribution. So for me, I'll miss him, but I think it was the right thing for all parties concerned to move him on.
Yeah, I think it was the right time. Definitely. I'm the same as you. I love Big Idah. I really did. I liked him. And I saw what he brought the team. Unfortunately, that's no longer going to be the case now. He's now moved on to Swansea, and best of luck to him, as I say.
Yeah.
And it's probably the right time for him to go as well. I think some of the comments have been coming in there about Celtic fans destroying him, and there's been a lot of hatred towards him, Mark, and it's been there's been no getting away from that. That if the big man is on any any form of social media. I know these boys try and kid on, they stay away, but like say Instagram and stuff as well, that got the better of him. And and I don't know if it was maybe that in the end that was maybe affecting him as well. You could see him really trying, and some games he was trying too hard, and he, things weren't coming off. Look at the game.
Yeah.
Was it the St Mirren game at the beginning of the season where he hits the post?
Yeah.
Either last season, I think buries that, or he even goes for it first time. He said, if that's Kyogo, he's probably hitting that first time. The wee man said as well. But yeah, I'm the same as you, mate. And I do firmly believe what you've said is spot on as well in terms of the number 9s is a very rare thing nowadays, mate. A lot of fans, football fans in general, just seem to compare football number 9s way back to your Andy Cole days and your Alan Shearer days, and those that kind of breed of strikers now no longer. It's not there anymore. It's no longer there. Strikers in the modern game, and people saying, I've read comments recently of people saying that Pep Guardiola's ruined football. Whereas the way he's got goalkeepers playing as sweepers, and he's got centre halves taking the ball, and midfielders, and this invertedness and everything else, and the strikers has to do a lot more in terms of what you need to do. You don't get away with just standing in the box anymore and let the ball hit off you and go in. But we've signed a lot of, through the years, mate, we've signed a lot of big names at the time. Like Tony Cascarino was a big thing when he came up here, mate, and he couldn't hit a cooney arse with a barn door.
Yeah, man.
So, and I remember Tony. He scored goals everywhere else. He was, he scored goals everywhere else he'd been, but he could not do it up here. And again, that's ultimately, mate, that's the Goldfish Bowl that Glasgow up here that represents. And I think a lot of fans, for me, it's overshadowed as well, mate. A lot of fans seem to forget, you're not just playing for Celtic, you're up here. There's a massive rivalry up here. And the forefront of your thinking constantly is we need to stay ahead of them. We need to, and your ultimate job, not when you pull on that Celtic jersey, your ultimate job is to go and be better than them. So that doesn't mean just playing them on Sunday. That means like the next game when we play Kilmarnock, the game after that when we play Partick Thistle, if it's going to be, and so on and so on. And what they do is no your concern until those games come together. So there's a massive rivalry here, mate. And sometimes I feel, Mark, I don't know how you feel, mate, but sometimes I just feel sometimes that gets lost as well in some of the fans' expectations and perceptions.
Well, Idah actually only started one game against our rivals, but he scored 3 goals, significant goals. So it was in 2 goals at Ibrox that we never get beat, and then the cup final. So, and I think it is like kind of expectations. I think it is. We've got to be mindful of the number 9s. Don't get me wrong. 2 things are coming out there that we have been not spoiled, but we've been, our recruitment of strikers over the last 20 years has been phenomenal at Celtic. And I think that's where the big man struggled, because he wasn't the next line of great strikers that we've signed. So Kyogo, Hooper, Griffiths, Dembele, Edouard, McDonald. Giacomakis. Yeah, really good strikers, brilliant strikers, phenomenal strikers signing. So, but the way the game's going, there's less and less of these. And the club, again, the board, and I have to blame the board here fully. And Rodgers said that a week or 2 ago, he was a good backup striker. He needed the main striker to play. He was brilliant at coming off the bench. Well, there you go. His cup final goal, coming off the bench. The one at Ibrox in the 3 each game, coming off the bench. So he was really effective. The young boys game, I'm sure he came off the bench as well. He did, because Kyogo got 3 offside goals in the first half.
Yeah.
So he came off the bench and ultimately forced that goal. So impact. And he had that in his locker, and he was a big game player as well. So that's where, but the board should have got another striker in, and he might have started the season differently. And the fans, when they've been, that was the board's the fans' frustration at the board going through the players that were letting us down most, and then the big price tag. So a bit of a catch-22, but no, I think even without replacing him, I think he had to go. Because his relationship with the fans was done sadly, but we'll see what we can do going forward, and hopefully we continue our great signing of strikers, and Iniacho could fill that void for the short term, maybe the longer term. Because you get your accolades at Celtic, you get your platform, you get your chances. So yeah, we'll see if he can do that.
Wee question for yourself, Mark. Obviously, my next line of questioning to yourself was going to be regarding this anyway. Love it, says Mark. What do you think of Inamura? But that's what I was going to bring up. Obviously, as you know, mate, the Europa squad has been announced. There's been certain individuals that were just brought in the club in the summer, like Jemai Simpson-Puzzi, Inamura, Shin Yamada, Callum Osmond. Some of these lads have not made that cut, mate. What's your thoughts there? I know you've obviously been quite big at the beginning in terms of Brendan. My thoughts are exactly aligned with you and with Brendan there. Yeah. And I feel that, do you think this is Brendan's way of going, I don't really want these guys, so they're not getting in anyway?
Yeah, in short. Yeah, again, it's all orchestrated to let the fans know that Brendan didn't get what he wanted for the board. He's just making a point. Although Inamura, and for one, I think he's a development player anyway. Even when he was signed, I'm not entirely sure why there's so much debate over a guy at 250,000 that's got a couple of years to develop. We always sign players like that. We've always done that. Tom Rodgers, Near Beaton. We've always signed these guys and they've come through eventually. Ryan Christie, Azure, when out of Kilmarnock. So we've always signed these type of players. I wouldn't look into that in too much detail. But Shin is different because he's 26, 27, isn't he? So
he's 25, isn't he? Is he 25?
25. So he's older. He's established, though. More established. He scored goals in the J League. So you've got to question his signing for me if he's not in the Europa squad. So is that genuinely a case? And I know that managers don't always see every single player that comes through. They trust the recruitment process, etc. But is it genuinely doesn't rate the player, or is he just using him as a scapegoat to tell the fans that, see, it's the board. They're not signed the players that I need. They're not as ambitious as me, and it takes the heat off of him.
What about the boys from Man City? Can you see the?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I'd be thinking, Mark, like, if I was that young lad, I mean,
yeah,
there's been murmurs, mate, that he's refused to play a game for the B squad and that. And and I'd be the same, mate. I think I'd be like the gaffer. I'm not here to play. Part of my loan deal is not to come here and play with your B team. I'm up here to make your first team better because I've played for Man City in the Champions League. So why am I here?
I get that, but see if it's the games to get him up to speed, and he's refused, then it doesn't matter who you are. If you've not got a good attitude, then you're meant to be a top professional. So he's not. I'm only assuming he's not played much. So I don't know. But again, this is what the club can clarify and should in the next couple of days, and I think Rodgers will clarify his inclusions. So maybe get a wee bit from him. So yeah, if it's a disciplinary issue, we'll just tell us, because it's baffling that we're getting somebody from Man City then and not having him in the squad, unless he intends to use them more domestically. And utilise the Euro squad in Europe as such, but I don't think that's the case. But again, we need to know.
Yeah. I mean, the lad came with a bit of promise as well. I mean, it's not as if he's a novice to the game. He's played in the Champions League. He played for Man City last season, a few of the games. So I know Rodgers did mention, mate, that he hasn't played a lot of football over pre-season with that World Club Championships that just happened, and he was training with a small group of the Man City players. He never really played in a lot of friendlies or games, but I get where you're coming from. If he has refused to play for the B team in a friendly, to give him games, give him minutes, there is that aspect of, well, where's your head at, son? Because we need you to, we need you playing. That's why we've brought you here, so we can get you in the team, and the ultimate way to do that is that. But I can see the other side of the argument as well. The boys probably looked at that and went, well, hold on a minute, I'm not here to play for the B team. I'm here to play with your first team. Yeah.
And Man City might not be happy with that. It might have been part of the loan deal that he has to play a certain amount of matches.
Yeah.
So, So
see, Barry Bannon gave us a wee insight to that a couple of weeks ago, mate, when he was on, and he told us that when loan players come and play for your club and don't play, each time it happens, Celtic would need to pay a fee.
Yeah.
There's a small fee that Celtic
Yeah.
need to pay,
Yeah.
like Man City, for that not happening. So the more games he's not
Yeah.
playing, mate, that's costing Celtic money.
Yeah. But I don't know. We need to try and see what we could find out with that. Hopefully get clarified in the next week or two.
Yeah.
If it is an attitude thing, then okay, that's fair enough. But if it's not, then yeah, why sign him? And is it another signing that Brendan hasn't looked at or just trusted the recruitment? So, I mean, Brendan done that initially when he came in, if you remember, with Naroki and Lagerbielka. And then he did come out a couple of months later and he says, look, I trusted the signing process or the strategy at the time. He says, but we need to change that now. So I don't know if it's the same again. But we'll find out.
Yeah. Obviously, moving forward, mate, are you big on the international scene? Do you think it interrupts the domestic season too much and you would rather just concentrate on club football? Or are you quite happy for certain individuals to get a wee bit of, not much of a break, and some of them do go away in international, but that wee bit of breaking time and that way they can reset and come back again?
No, I hate the international, the break, and they should just keep it on a Wednesday night they used to do years ago in between the games, because it's just we're just back as well. No, I mean, a couple of games,
Aye,
and then it's you've not got the games on. Although it's better than the whole summer, which was pretty long. But no, but use the time, just maybe to get a few players more up to speed, get the new signings settled, get them training for a couple of weeks with other teammates that are not away and stuff like that. And hopefully the players that are away, none of them sustain any injuries or anything like that. So not ideal, but yeah, use the time. And then I see we're at Rugby Park, one of Brendan's favourite venues, and especially when it's times of crisis. So, but I'm looking forward to the next game regardless, because we need to see where we're standing and what kind of response we're going to get and what focus we're going to get for the team. But I'm quite excited to see the new players and the wide players especially. And we've still got a real good core of players at the club. Bear in mind, but we've not let Dyson or Hitati or Carter Vickers go. So we've kept him for quite a wee bit of time. So they're really good, experienced players. It's just the appetite question, but I'm sure they'll be all right once the season, that's everybody settled, the transfer window shut. There's no speculation for a wee bit of time now, so need to get down to business. And the other thing as well, I was thinking that we don't play Rangers again until the January transfer window opens. So we've only got them just before that, and so domestically we don't have, on paper, any real tough games. I'm not saying that Hibs and Hearts are going to be tough, but it's a straightforward run domestically. And I know we're already looking forward to the January window to strengthen. And then even the Europa games, the kind of favourable ties are first. I don't think we play the kind of tougher matches to January. So it's kind of weighted. I don't know if the board have looked at that and thought we could maybe get the squad through to that period, and then, and I'm not getting any faith in them investing in January, but it might be their thinking because of the way it's weighted. So, but yeah, it's not as daunting as I kind of thought before I looked at the fixtures with the squad we've got. So it might be actually a good run of games for the squad to get together and get. And I'll be interested to see how our squad do in Europa because of the Champions League experienced players we've got, because we've got seasoned Champions League players in the squad. So I'll be looking for them to step up and show their qualities in the Europa League.
Yeah,
so,
first game's away though. We're in Belgrade for the first one just after we come back after this international break as well. So it's I think we've got Kilmarnock at Rugby Park on the Sunday, a beating Sunday, and then it's if my memory serves me right the night without looking, is it Firhill on the Friday night after that?
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right. I know, is it Saturday?
We play. Is it? I'm sure it's a Friday night game, is it not?
Is it?
Yeah,
I think it's Firhill kick-off time.
Is it? I thought it was. I thought it was a night time game. Yeah,
what mean that?
But I thought it was a Friday. If anybody in the comments can let us know while we're live here.
I'll just tell you.
I thought it was a Friday for some reason, and then I think it's a Wednesday after that. We actually play on a Wednesday. We play the Belgrade game on a Wednesday.
Aye, we do. That's right. That's the only Wednesday Europa game we've got, I think.
I think so. Aye.
Yeah. The Thistle game's the 21st at 3:30. So that's a Sunday, I think.
Is that a Sunday?
So Kelly on the 14th. And then Thistle away. And then we're away in Belgrade on the 24th. That's the Wednesday. And then home to Hibs.
Right.
That's the first game back at Parkhead.
Aye, so that's the 20. Is that the 27th then?
Yeah.
Right. Would you think that'll be toxic, mate, when we get to that point?
We need to see, won't we? Yeah.
Beginning with earplugs on that day.
Possibly. Hopefully not. Hopefully things will be clarified. But then, no, they should get some, because that is the first league game that the fans have, quite rightly, hopefully no during the game, but before or after, can make their feelings heard or follow up for the statements that have been released recently to get something back on it.
I think there'll be some sort of demonstration. I definitely think there's going to be. And by the way, I'm not sitting here advocating for it. I'm just saying that I think there'll be a demonstration either before or after, and probably even during as well. And I've always said, even these things happen during. I've always never been one for something like that, but that can always have an effect on the team as well, Mark.
Yeah, well, Callum McGregor mentioned it a couple of weeks ago that no signing players, the fans being disgruntled does come onto the pitch. So, and that's where the board's got a duty of care, because that's, as I said, these rumours online, these bits of information, whether they're true or they're not, you need to come out and address them. Yeah. Because they're fueling the fans' displeasure, their anger. So don't fan the flames. Come out and at least, it might not be what we want to hear, but it'll clarify a few things for us. Maybe put the hand up and just say, aye, we made a mistake. We went in low for a few players and we shouldn't have. We need to learn. We'll need to be quicker. We'll need to get these players done in the right time scales, because it has harmed the squad. We know the fans are disgruntled. It can pass on to the team. So, and I think the fans would appreciate that. Okay, it's been mistakes, but at least be honest about it and put the hand up, and then tell us, as you say, the 5-year plans, or what we can put in place. I'm not sure of the wording of that, to guarantee success or get success. That doesn't happen in football. But put a plan, get the fans what your strategy is, what your planning is, what the recruitment, how it could be better, what areas you're going to look at, how the deals can be done in a time scale that's going to be better prepared, why we've not been prepared for the Champions League qualifiers, because it has spanned back over the last 10, 15 years. So, and that's the fans, that's the constant repeat that the fans are angry about and get frustrated, because we see it happening time and time again. However, you can acknowledge as well, and I'm one for this, that a lot of good things that the board have done, a lot of good recruitment, the great players that we've got through, but we're just talking about other strikers. So they're all recruited, so your Nicholas Coons and your Jotas and your Carter Vickers, Alistair Johnsons, they're all good signings. So good enough signings to make us compete against Bayern Munich. But let's get back to that. Let's see if it is got to change, what we're going to do about it and get back on that path again. Start getting the good signings back to the club and back to where we want to be.
Yeah, because that excitement's ultimately starting to dwindle away a wee bit, and they're starting to become an overgrown anxiety now surrounding the place and everything else. And yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think they need to give us some sort of transparency, whether it be, part of an explanation, or they need to do something. I think this article's too strong now for it. This isn't just going to go away. So they now, I think they know that with the severe wording of the document that was sent into them. And Michael Nicholson's obviously addressed that through a media source, because you've read an article where it's like inverted commas and stuff, and it's as if he's saying it, and he knows it through his PA, he's received this document, and I think they're going to have to go away and really sit and consider what they're going to come out and say, because they need to do it. They're going to need to do it, because there's going to be a lot of people. Well, the thing is as well, the big fear there is there's going to be hardly anybody at the Europa League ties when they come around, when it's the home games, mate. I think a lot of guys, and to be fair, I'm one of them, mate. I've come off the home cup ticket scheme just after the Kairat fallout, because I just thought, I've had enough of this. I'm not paying. So I was 29 quid for the home tie. And that was a bag of washing that night as well. That was just,
Yeah.
oil of camp. You look at decision making throughout the club as well just now, Mark. It's not just the transfers or the window. I mean, these decisions that are being made, like Stephen Welsh is now gone to Motherwell, and that's now left as a man down in the Europa League squad. So just for that's, the homegrown thing. Our good friend William Glavin clarified that as well last night. So William's obviously been on the channel multiple times. Everybody knows he used to be Ryan Christie's agent. So William's worked in the game for quite a long period of time, and that's what he says. It's the decision making that's coming throughout the team. I mean, we go back to we're going back to COVID here. Whoever decided to take the team to Dubai, when they went there during COVID, during a global pandemic, and then Neil Lennon coming back and trying to defend it all, and just there's decisions being made just now, mate, that they just don't marry up with sensible thinking.
So, JP, I'll put this to you then, because see your situation with the home the ticket scheme, right? This shouldn't be happening because you don't want to do that. You want to go and support your team, mate. And that's the situation. So the Celtic fans aren't just chucking it because things aren't going their way. It's the only way that the fans feel that they can get through to this board. Yeah, they can make a noise. They can just get their attention, and it's sad because it is people like yourself that are willing to get up, going to watch their team that they love, because they feel that this is what it's come to get this board to even answer them. So what would it take for you, for the board, to make you go to these games? What do you think they could do in the next week or two to come out and say what they say? What could they address? What could they tell you that would then make you change your mind?
Be truthful and honest. Be transparent in your explanation. Don't try and palm it off with an excuse or come up with some sort of, I don't know, it might not have been me, it might have been her, it might have been him, it might just be honest and say, look, we've got to shoulder this, as a board here, we got this wrong. If it's individual decision making or anything at all, so I think it's not just, like you says there, Mark, it's not just been this one occasion, mate. This is something that's been happening for a long time. It's not just one or two occasions, mate. It's a continuation. Martin O'Neill was on TalkSport, mate, 2 weeks ago, talking about how it used to happen when he was there. And he, see the wording of things like Big Ange, as you mentioned them earlier. Brendan coming out and saying, I'm not really doing a good job to convince this board. Mate, I'm not being funny, mate. He's the head of your footballing department. If he's telling you this is what he wants, the board should be giving him a number of money and going, right, Brendan, there you go. That's how much money you've got to spend on your squad, mate. Yeah. It's on your head if it goes wrong. Yeah. But that's what if you want to bring people in that you think can help you in the footballing department or whatever else to get you these deals done, then fair enough. But if it goes wrong, it's on you. And that's where, for me, that's not happening at our club. And I know, in an ideal world, if Carlsberg made football clubs, we'd all be running perfectly. And I don't mean that to sound just because if it was that easy, everybody'd be doing that. But there's got to be somewhere in between, mate, that, see, a manager should never be coming out and going, I don't know what my transfer kit is. What do you mean, man? Like, that's no filling us with confidence as a fan base. So who's picking the players in? Because you brought these guys in for Japan and now you're making it sound like you don't want them there. We need to assess them and we need to train them and we need to... Come on. Are you trying to tell us you've not even sat and watched them, Brendan? What is it you're saying? But for me to go back to these games, Mark, I think it's going to take, like he says, shows what you mean. Shows what you're talking about. What's your plan? What kind of profile of player are you targeting and why? If it's a higher bracket, I think a lot of the fans earlier in this window would have went, okay, well, they didn't have to give us specifics or names but we were, I mean, there was crazy rumours jumping about that we were going to be getting Chiesa for Liverpool on loan, right? Because he wasn't in the Liverpool squad, and ultimately now he's been left out of their Champions League team and all. So how do you think that boy's feeling as well when he's playing his trade at Liverpool? And that's what I'm saying. If it's that kind of bracket of play you're going for because you want to go to that next stage, then fine. But let us know. Don't keep us in the dark and let us all think what's going on here. And then you're going and bidding 1.65 million for a guy you're being told is valued at 5 million. That doesn't make any. But that just doesn't make any sense to me, Mark.
No, as I've said, I appreciate that they can't disclose a lot because of the nature of the transfer window. However, what they could explain to the support is their strategy with regards to trying to attract players. Now, I heard you commenting about Chris Sutton and Neil Lennon in Sunday. So, Chris Sutton, for me, it was a few throwaway comments for Sutton, right? Other clubs just get it done, right? So I don't know what other clubs he's meaning. I'd like Chris Sutton to be a bit more specific when he's talking about stuff like this. But Neil Lennon, I had to take his word because Neil Lennon's been the manager and attracted players to the club. And he says that Glasgow is a hard sell. Now, I know folk don't like to hear that because they think that Neil Lennon's backing the board, but that Neil Lennon's an honest guy in that respect. He's not going to make that up. And I'll back that up anyway because there was players in this window that chose to go to Charlton Athletic instead of Celtic. And he actually chose to go to Middlesbrough before when we approached him. Riley McGree's another one that went to Middlesbrough. There was the boy, is it Puku or something like that, went to QPR instead of Rangers this summer. Glasgow is a hard sell. However, if the board would come out and give us something along those lines of these are the players that we targeted, they either wanted too much wages that we can't breach, we can't go to, so it's 70, 80 grand a week, or the players chose not to come to us after we'd. So these deals and all that as well, they don't just happen in a couple of days. You've got to convince players to come to Glasgow. You're playing against Ross County and Livingston and Dundee 4 times a season, 3 times a season in plastic pitches. It isn't that attractive. Look at the best players that we sell. Look at the clubs that they go to. Como, Union Berlin, Brighton, MLS. They're not that's more attractive to our best players. And we can offer Champions League and Europa League football. So there's got to be a bit of reality. But then the board need to come out and tell us this. And maybe not lower the expectations, but tell them, look, this is how difficult it is. Because we are offering the money for these players, but then they're taking their time and then they're choosing to go to Middlesbrough, or they're getting 60 grand a week at Union.
Well, that's the thing. I know you talk about the boy Fofana, who you mentioned there about Charlton. That deal never even materialised for the boy either, because he, it was so late in getting that done as well. So, no, you're right, mate. You're bang on in that, and see, for me, Celtic shouldn't be getting gazumped with teams like Charlton. But I know what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. Unfortunately, the brand of football that's up here just is not that inviting. Guys don't want to come here and play. They don't want to play Partick Thistle on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. They would rather go and play against Brentford and Brighton and teams like Leicester and Birmingham, who are obviously up and coming as well now. That's more appealing to these players. They don't want to come here. And Neil Lennon is bang on when he says that, because you're listening to a guy who's been on both sides yet. He's been there. He's attracted people up here. And it must have been really difficult for him to get, Neil Lennon came into a Celtic side at the time where it was still really, really competitive between the two Glasgow teams. You look at Rangers back then, I know. Or the old Rangers, as I would call them now. They were still... we didn't know then that obviously Govan was a tax haven at the time, but obviously that all became apparent quite afterwards. But when you see that and then you say to yourself, right, well, that's how we got guys like Gary Hooper and Joe Ledley and even Chris Commons, because Chris Commons was quite established in the English game down there, and he played with some right good clubs before he came here. It's really hard for Celtic to attract that now, mate, because of the, you look at Hibs, they failed in Europe this season. Aberdeen never made the Europa. They fell into the Europa Conference. Years gone by, Connor Keys have beat Kilmarnock. The team in Ireland beat Motherwell the other year. So that's what I mean. It's been one thing after another. The product in Scottish football is a hard sell. It really is, mate. And I know they're, to an extent, Mark, I know their hands are tied, but I've always thought that the Champions League, the last couple of years we've got away with it, mate, because we've already been in the Champions League, because we've had that kind of safety net. I've always thought that would have been a big enough carrot to dangle. But then you're bang on, mate, because see, once you've done the Champions League games and that's all kind of finished when you're only left with a domestic thing, these guys probably get fed up very quickly. They probably go out and like you says, mate, you know,
Yeah.
it's a motivational thing as well. They must get to a point, mate, in a season where look at Nicholas Cooney, 6 really good months where he was in tune, he was in the Champions League, he was scoring goals, he was doing this, yada yada yada. Comes afterwards, and then it's like we've not got Europe now. We've only got games domestically, and unfortunately, even as much as we're involved in it, so it's ingrained into us. But the rivalry, you look at a game on Sunday, mate, quality-wise, in terms of, you know, you've got games like that happening more so now than never. So when that happens, mate, I think you're bang on, mate. I think that is a real hard sell.
And that's what Lennon commented on as well, that he got a good number of players in, like Ledley, Forster, Hooper, and players like that, Wanyama. So he done really well. I think he sold Eden McGeady to kind of finance all of that. So he done exceptionally well. But then he says to continue to do that, it was his last season. If you remember, he had to buy Dick Brichter, Timo Pukki. And he said that, so he went out and done it again, but he couldn't get the same quality. And that's what happens at football clubs as well. It's all cycles. So I think we've been phenomenal in our transfer strategy in the last 10 to 15 years. We've brought through some exceptional players. So our scouting's been at a good level. And I appreciate that we've got to go through a lot of players to get that, but most clubs do. But it is going back to the quality of player that we don't sign quality players. We develop quality players. So Carter Vickers going to get a game for Spurs. He was going to boot loan deals for his career until he came to ourselves. Jota couldn't get a game for Benfica. He'd one goal when he was in loan at Valladolid in the Premier League before he joined Celtic. So Nicholas Kuhn's stats weren't amazing at Rapid Vienna. So Matt O'Reilly was at MK Dons before he came to Celtic. He wasn't setting a header in fire at that club. He was a decent enough player. He'd been released by Fulham before that. So credit to ourselves that we've actually identified these players, brought them in and developed them into £30 million players. So that's where it is. It's raised the fans' expectations that every window should be a high caliber of player coming in, but we don't actually sign high caliber of players. We probably never will because of the market we're in, but it doesn't say that we can't sign players and produce quality players like we do. And
I mean, we have had high caliber like Robbie Keane, Craig Bellamy, but we've never been able to hold on to them, mate. They've went elsewhere. But again, I go back to it. There's been comments while me and you're chatting here, and they're saying, how's Ravanelli done this, and how's Caniggia came here, and how... There goes my point a minute ago. The quality between you look at the league, the quality in the league's not there anymore. Dundee were under a foreign ownership that was spending millions of pounds. You know, that's why they brought in your Caballeros and your Juan Saras and even Novo and all these guys, and Timori Kitspaya came here and played with them as well, and Ravanelli came, but they were friends with the owners that used to own, you know, the Ivan Benettis and guys that used to own Dundee back then. But even the league map was really competitive then. You look at Martin O'Neill's Celtic team up against a Dick Advocaat's Rangers team. The two teams were neck and neck, mate. They were, you know, they spent £12 million in Tony Andre Flo. That's where their budget was going. The league was such more attractive then. It's lost its appeal now, mate. It's not the same. It's so nowhere near the same.
Celtic team had, I think, the 5th or 6th biggest wage budget in Britain at the time.
There you go.
So now we can't get near clubs like Wrexham and Birmingham City. So Birmingham City paid £15 million for a striker in League One last season. So we can't afford to spend £15 million on a player. But we maybe could if it was a player that would guarantee that we could get 30-40 million back on in a year or two. That's where the fans want the model to go. I want the model to go that way as well. However, you mentioned about the league. Has the league got a glass ceiling of selling players? Is it 30 million? So if it's 30 million and we can't get any more than 30 million for selling players, then how do we buy players at 10, 15, 20 million and expect to make more money when the league can't sell players any more than 25, 30 million? So you've got, but again, this is something that the board can come out and clarify with the support. And is it more risk averse to buy players at £2-3 million? So Matt O'Reilly was 1.5, Dyson Maeda was 2 million, Kuhn was 3.5 million. So we've made loads of money on the guys. I'm not saying that the Jota was 6 million, so that was a good investment. Edward was 9 million, good investment, made 18 million in him. So it does work, and generally we do get our bigger signings right, but the market is getting tougher. Season on season, it's getting tougher. Not just 10 years ago. Season on season, it's getting tougher. Teams that we used to take players for, like Midtjylland and Denmark and all that, they're selling strikers for 20 million to Premier League now. We used to go and take their better players and pay 4 or 5 million for a Simonovic, for Dynamo Zagreb and all that. That's gone. So we're now having to go and take. I see Bruges. I referenced it before. They're signing players in the German second division. £6 million they're playing for players in the German second division. Now. That's where you're at. So and we are not happy with a £9 million striker that scores 20 goals a season, 3 goals in the Champions League. It's not good enough. But look at it in comparison to the other transfer fees, the strikers that are going for 15, 20 million, the low returns. So Miovski went for 7 million, scored 2 goals last year. 2 goals. But Idah's a flop.
Yeah.
So it's one comparison.
It's you've hit the nail on the head, mate. I think it just all depends on what angle you're coming from, and yeah, bang on, mate, because this financial fair play thing as well, I think that'll start bringing a bit more of the the bigger clubs are starting to bring it back now. That when you hear that, you look at the new formats, European wise, these league phases and stuff, this is giving the kind of lesser teams an opportunity then because all these games are all one off. You don't play each other again. So
yeah.
You look how well Aston Villa did last year, and they're probably not one of the highest of, in terms of biggest spenders. But you talk about the opportunity that these clubs have now got to really make a dent in these competitions, because they can pick up points in a one-off game against anybody when they go away from home. We went to Atalanta and drew nothing each, and it was like one of our best results in Europe we've ever had. How elated were we all as a Celtic fan that night when we went to Dortmund and get absolutely obliterated, and then that happened. You seen how pragmatic the manager was and everything else. So yeah, but I think you're bang on, mate. I think this league's lost its appeal of what it might have been 20, 30 years ago. In terms of the derby and everything else as well. I do agree with that aspect, and I think that's got a lot to play in. Some even young lads, like say, if we were to go and sign another young Edward again, he'd be looking for us to be in the Champions League, but he'll not want to. He'll not want to. I thought I was going mad the other day. I read the other day, Martin, seen 2 years' time, mate, there's not going to be a Champions League qualifying position. There's not going to be a Europa qualifying position. You're going to have to play qualifiers just to get into the Europa Conference. That's how bad our coefficient is becoming. That's where the Scottish, I think it's 27, 28, mate. I think that's how soon it is.
I thought it was this season.
No, if you win, if you've got the Champions League again, kind of the same as what it was at the summer there. But it's the 27-28 season, or it's the 28-29 season, if I'm not mistaken. Big Alan's your man for that, because he's normally quite tuned in with all that, so he is. But that's where this is going. That's what's happening.
So I'm sure this season, like, the winners have to play 3 qualifiers to get into the Champions League. Second place doesn't get Europa League qualification. No. It's Conference League qualification. You've got to win the Scottish Cup to then go into the qualifiers to get into the Europa League this season.
Right.
So I'll clarify that for the next time I'm on.
Well, this season here, the winners get what did you say, the Champions League?
The winners need to play 3 Champions League qualifiers to get into the Champions League. That's the winners. The runners up go into the conference qualifiers. Runners up, not the Europa.
That's this season.
I think so, and I'll clarify it for the next pod. And then you have to win the Scottish Cup to get into the Europa.
So there you go. So this is what I'm saying. You talk about appeal and things that are the way the outlook on things. It's going to get even harder.
Yeah.
when you start doing that. So yeah, I mean,
Is that what the
but
board's preparing for? Is that what
well,
they
this is
have?
what I'm saying. You know, people are asking why are you holding on to
Yeah.
cash? Why are we doing this? Why have we got all that money in the bank? What's it for? I mean, due to legalities and stuff, mate, I would imagine, are they allowed to tell us, you know, why do you think they would be allowed to tell us as to why they're, you know,
Yeah.
we're calling it hoarding, they'd probably call it saving, as to why they're obviously saving that money for
Yeah.
like another rainy day because they could maybe foresee all this happening.
Possibly. But yeah, just on that, the last point I'll make, that we do still attract players. We got Kieran Tierney back, we got Schmeichel, we got Jota back. So we've still, but that's the power of the club, it's the power of the manager. We do have a draw, but it is difficult to, the guys that maybe don't have an allegiance to the club, or it is just a choice between Middlesbrough or Charlton or Celtic. That's modern football. That's what we're. And 99.9% of players will go for money. They're not interested in what league. Well, there's Nicholas coming away to play non-European football, and okay, Serie A with Como, so he's just wanting to triple his wage packet. So that's not a footballing decision. So,
yeah, and some of these young lads, you obviously you can't blame them, mate. They've got lives and
of course,
lifestyle's probably a lot better in
Yeah.
Como than what it is in Glasgow. Again, and
Yeah.
you're talking about Glasgow appeal earlier on, and I have seen this as well, Mark. So we might need to clarify that one because G-Doc has says if Rangers win the league, they go straight into the Champions League next season. Because of their coefficient points, they've got a much higher coefficient points than unfortunately what we have. It's probably the only thing they are ahead of us on.
Is that one thing that might benefit is being in Europa, the coefficient? Because I see that Pilsen and teams like that have a higher coefficient than ourselves, but that's just through generally being in Europa in the last couple of seasons as opposed to the Champions League. So that's maybe one thing that could enhance our coefficient if we get more victories in the Europa League. I think that's the way it works, bizarrely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to thank you again, mate, for another great chat. We could probably sit here and come up with another 15 topics to sit with, mate. But again, it's a Thursday night. It's nearly 10 o'clock. And obviously, we've been on a good hour and 37 minutes now. So, Mark, I appreciate your time, mate. And I appreciate you coming on and giving us your input. I think you've covered you've touched base with quite a lot of really, really important points. And maybe giving one or two of the listeners a wee bit of food for thought as well, including myself, regarding certain individuals that were at the football club and obviously are no longer there, like say Idah, and then you've mentioned about Glasgow not being that big appeal. So it's been good to get you on, though, mate.
No, thanks. It's been great to be on. It's always a pleasure. I love just getting an opportunity to talk about the Celts, and for all the comments, I love reading all the comments as well, guys. It provokes good debate, and I think at this time that we need to have debate around what's happening. But I'm looking forward. I think things could be good, and just once we get rugby part out of the way and get the 3 points, then things settle down. The transfer window shut. We'll maybe get Brendan back focused, and the team firing away. We've got a league to win convincingly, hopefully.
Yeah, and a Europa League campaign to go and tackle and try and do our utmost best in as well. So,
yeah,
to everybody that's tuned in with us across the platforms, again, thank you for staying with us on this Thursday night. The lads are back tomorrow. I think it's Ryan, Sean, and Alan. They'll be back for more chat on Celtic. Probably the matters of if this board have come out and they've heard me, Mark, tonight, and they've come out and gave us a reply by then. But as he's a Thursday night, there's never a dull moment with Celtic. You know, there's always something to have a chat about. Knowing Big Alan, he'll have a Dion Dublin story or something kicking about somewhere, or a Tony Warner story or something like that. Knowing Big Al, he's never slow any other time. But no, a very good evening to you all, and thanks again for tuning in at the Celtic Unrestricted View. Hail, take care. We'll see you all again. Bye bye.
picks up RALSTON here. RALSTON, oh, he's in! Henrik RALSTON! That is sensational! O'Reilly, how about that for a pass? Jota! How about that for a finish? That is Jota for you! In for Henrik RALSTON, and montage! His first goal for Celtic! Here is Shunsuke Nakamura! Exquisite!